Okay, building words, part 2. We have inflection and derivation. So derivation is when you form new words from parts of words that already exist. And these parts are called morphemes. This is an important term. A morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit in a language. Usually a single sound is not a meaningful unit. If I say n, that doesn't really mean anything. Or if I say s, that doesn't really mean anything. So a meaningful unit, for example, in unbelievable, we have 3 morphemes. Unbelievable. So the stem or root morpheme is what gives the word its core meaning. And in this case, it's believe, which is a verb. The morpheme un means not, and so it's a prefix which negates. Yes, sorry, I did this oddly animated. And the morpheme able means able to X. So we get this fancy little tree here. You take believe and combine it with able, so you get believable, which is an adjective, and then you negate that, unbelievable, you still have an adjective. So you can see how these two go together in the tree, and then you negate that whole thing, and you get unbelievable. And notice in that example how the derivation can change the part of speech or the grammatical category. So you take believe, which is a verb, add able, you get an adjective, and then unbelievable, it stays an adjective. Alright, so the principle of compositionality. By combining morphemes to create words, you use stems and affixes. So the stem in unbelievable was believe, it's the root, and the affixes are the part that you affix to either the front or the back of the word. Prefixes you put on the beginning, like unbelievable, and suffixes go at the end, able. You can also, in some languages have infixes, where you insert a morpheme in the middle of another morpheme, but English doesn't do that. And so when you combine morphemes to create new words, it's called a complex expression or a complex word. And just note that every single morpheme has either a lexical meaning or a grammatical function. Believe has a lexical meaning. Un and able have some meaning, but they also mostly serve a grammatical function. Able changes it into an adjective, and un is sort of a negative thing. Alright, so the meaning of a complex expression is determined by 2 things: the meaning of each part, each morpheme, and the hierarchical relationships between the morphemes. And this is important. So, unlockable. It can mean 2 things. Okay, so it's a complex expression. The stem here is lock. It's a verb. Lock can also be a noun, but in this case we're looking at the verb lock. It can mean 2 things: can't be locked or able to be locked. In both interpretations you have the same prefix un and the same suffix able, but you can make unlockable mean 2 different things, and that's based on the hierarchical structure of the word. So in this first example, you can see first the verb and the adjective suffix lockable were put together to create an adjective, lockable. And then you negate lockable and you get an adjective meaning unlockable, so it can't be locked. On the other hand, in this one, first you take the stem lock and you negate it, unlock. So you have a verb meaning unlocked. See how there's a verb up here. And then when you add the adjective suffix to it, you make unlock an adjective. It's unlockable, able to be unlocked. So if you can't get both those interpretations, spend a little time trying to look at these little trees and see if you can figure them out. So it depends, the meaning of the word depends on the hierarchical structure. And we're going to see this again on Monday when we talk about phrases and sentences. Alright, so derivation can be used very creatively. You can say linguistical. This is one I hear a lot because I'm a linguist. You can say, oh, he's the dishes washer upper. Dish plus the suffix is, wash plus the suffix up plus the suffix dishes washer upper. Simpsonian. Over morphologization. Morphology, remember, so morphology is the study of putting words together. So this is kind of a silly one. So remember, a morpheme is the smallest unit of meaning. So over morphologization would be, it's kind of a word like itself. It's just a word that's really morphologically complex for no real reason. The longest word that we have in English is anti-disestablishmentarianism, which has a lot of derivational morphology. Anti, dis, establishment is the root, well, actually establish is the root, meant, airy, and ism are all suffixes. So this has two prefixes, anti, dis, a root, and then several suffixes as well. So there is also another way that we can use morphemes. So we don't always have to combine words to make a new word. We remember, so our example, buffalo, 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 buffalo. This is an example of what's known as null derivation. Null means sort of zero or nothing. So this is creating a new word by just using a word that already exists. And in this case, so with the buffalo example, you are taking buffalo, the noun, and making it into buffalo, the noun, so for a place name, for like the animal, sorry. And then presumably the place name buffalo came from the noun buffalo, so that's just using it for the same grammatical category. And then buffalo are sort of confused animals. They're not, the brightest. So from there we get the verb buffalo. So you're just making a new word by taking a word that already exists and just using it as a word from a different word class. And in these instances, the meaning usually doesn't change tremendously. In buffalo, confuse and bison are sort of different. But with texting, I'll text her as the verb, or she got my text as the noun. It means basically the same sort of core meaning. All right, we also have inflection. And inflection are sort of things that change. It doesn't actually change the grammatical category. It doesn't really create a new word. It's just, they're just things that are necessary to make a sentence grammatical. You can't say, I pat the dog. Well, I guess you can in present tense. But this changes the tense, I patted the dog. I can't say, I pats the dog. But you can say, she pats the dog. So the inflectional morphemes, so the little, remember morphemes, the smallest unit of meaning, the inflectional morphemes are all highlighted in blue here, and they just add a little bit of grammatical information to the sentence. So in English, we don't use a lot of inflectional affixes. There are indeed actually only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 of them. And most of them are use the sound S or Z, and they are all suffixes. So in English, we don't really have a lot of inflection. And I'm going to show you some other ways of word building. I'm not going to talk you through it, but you'll be able to just read the slides, and you can see what other languages do.